Rupert, Renee Zellweger is not the most obvious choice when you were looking to cast an actor to play Judy Garland. What swung the decision in her favor?
Gosh, many things. I mean, the singing was an important part. I really wanted someone to sing it properly. And I'd seen Chicago, but I didn't know that she could do what we needed her to do. So we did some work on that. I think I guess we know Garland as a very theatrical, diva-like figure, almost camp. And of course we were going to have a little of that, but I also wanted somebody who was very, very human and could be the mother and the lonely, isolated, vulnerable figure. And so, you know, there are some actors, and this is what makes a movie star, who seem to be in our families. They are mythic, but yet very close, like Tom Hanks has got that quality, of course, and Jimmy Stewart. And I think Judy Garland had it, and I think Renee has it. And I think if you look at her list of films, she keeps, those roles are a movie star, but yet the girl next door, Bridget Jones, classically. And so that was very helpful. But then also she'd experienced Hollywood, you know, and had some kind of unpleasant things written about her, and you know, really sexist stuff, actually, to be honest, and you know, come through the 90s era, which was a particular kind of thing for actresses. The whole Harvey Weinstein sort of celebration of, you know, her work, and Mingela's period, and then some time away to try and get her head clear of Hollywood. And when she described to me, like particularly the period around when she was doing Cold Mountain in Chicago and the craziness of it, I thought, oh, you've really lived some of the stuff, and you know, you're lucky, you're clean living and you look after yourself in the way that Judy Garland didn't, but you still will bring to me some of that kind of whirlpool of Hollywood.
And did she talk to you about that? Was that something she tapped into to relive that phase of Judy Garland's life that is the focus of this film?
Yeah, I think we certainly talked about it, but I think the job of the director, I think, is to, on one hand, to find that sort of Stanislavski-like correlative and go, oh, it's like this, you know, sense memory from this part of your life to this. But actually, it's more about trust and saying to the actor, don't be afraid to be the most vulnerable part of yourself, right, and how you get them to that point. And yes, that linked a bit to past stuff, but I think sometimes that's just almost like a rhythmic thing.
You know, given that now one knows through this film what was going on behind the scenes during the making of The Wizard of Oz, I feel like it's going to be hard for anyone to watch that film without that bearing on you. Can you talk about whether that was the effect it had on you when you made those discoveries, when you learned that in prep for the film?
Gosh, that'd be, you know, I still love that movie, so, and although I recognise all the things you say, I mean, it would be a shame if that was the case for everybody. I suppose in an interesting way, though, you can watch that movie as a little child, and then a slightly older child, and then even as a teenager, and find different things in it. And then if you watch it as an adult and you see adult things behind it, then maybe that's part of its enduring power. Certainly, I mean, I have to say the few days in the studio when we were filming on our version of that set was pretty, it felt like being in a dream, because it's this mythic. It would be like being in a Hansel and Gretel like kind of forest, you know, sort of like a very primal understanding of one's own childhood. And I think the nature of that, the magic of that film, the pathway, the forest, the poppies, the castle, they're like Jungian kind of archetypes in a way. And so that there were also dark, abusive, sometimes even sexual elements of that doesn't surprise me entirely.
Right. Why was it important for you to focus on that chapter or that phase of her life when she's sort of washed up, when the love's dried up, the work's dried up, both personally and professionally? Those are challenging times for her.
Sure.
Why was that the interesting phase of her life for this movie?
Well, I mean, she had lots of interesting phases, and of course, you could make movies about Carnegie Hall or, you know, her and Mickey Rooney. I suppose I was interested in how the beginning of her life impacted the end of her life, and the two things connected. I liked this parallel that she's a long way from home in London trying to get home, and that was sort of like a Wizard of Oz experience, and she's meeting strange people in this strange world. I like the idea, I suppose, that she, at the end of her life, felt like she was a shadow of her glory, and how an artist deals with that in front of themselves and an audience. Partly because I think that's just interesting in the art that is made by late career artists, but also I think that's how we all feel. We all feel fake versions of ourselves on bad days. And I found that really moving, that she would have gone out on stage thinking they're going to expect Judy Garland and I'm not Judy Garland anymore. And, you know, that vulnerability I find very moving.
You won't forget me, will you? Promise you won't.
Finally, there is this bit in the end where she says to an audience, "You won't forget me, will you?" And it's truly heartbreaking. What does that say about the nature of celebrity, the nature of the world that we live in, where we put people on pedestals very quickly and pull them down just as fast?
I think lots of things. I think it says something also about the unique quality of performance and the relationship of the performer to the audience. For me, that's a little bit like a moment of transcendence, that however low you go, when you find your true home, and for Garland, I think it was on stage in front of an audience, then you can find love. And the anxiety about being forgotten, I think, was because I think it goes right back to her childhood psychology of people not making her fearful of her identity. Her mother left her in this hotel room famously when she was very young, saying she's never going to come back. On the touring circuit would often do that. So I think she was always worried about being abandoned, and then to a degree had been abandoned. Hollywood had abandoned her, the touring dates had abandoned her husband had abandoned her, even in my movie, to some extent, even her children don't abandon her. Everyone leaves her. Desperate. And yet she finds something in the face of that, which is these unknown people, the audience, and in a way, and this may sound sentimental, I hope that that's a takeaway from the film, is that you can, however low you go, in strange moments, from the most unlikely sources, you can find the comfort of strangers.
Thank you so much. Thank you.